Okay, welcome to this episode of the Wire podcast. It has been a journey to create this episode with Pacha Light, which we'll get into in this episode. This is a follow-up to our conversation with Michael Stewart that we had in the last episode of the Wire podcast. You can find that on iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Just search The Wire by Firewire Surfboards. Of course, we're here to discuss sea trees, but we're also going to discuss much more than that.
Oh my goodness.
I can't believe that I can hear you and I can see you and we're good.
I know, same here. Oh my gosh. I was setting up this Wi-Fi modem. I've just finished my complete quarantine since travel. So it's been exactly like 15 days since I returned back from a trip, and so my mum could come down and she bring a little pocket Wi-Fi, and I was trying to set it up last night and it wasn't working and I was freaking out, and then this morning it clicked in and I was just like, oh my gosh, I can finally do emails on a computer, like luxury living. No, it's so good.
So for our audience, I have to ask you, yesterday we tried to do this and we lost reception and everything fell apart. Remind us where you live and where you are in the world and why it's so difficult for you to get good internet.
So at the moment, I'm now kind of living at our kind of Forrest house on the northern coast of New South Wales. So really small town, and our property borders into the national park. So it's definitely a beautiful zone and so much beautiful trees and wildlife around. And it is rubbish truck days. Oh no. One quick moment.
Yeah, sure.
Can you be quiet? I'm doing this. Say hi to Chris.
Hey.
Spilling driveway. We got gravel delivered, and so Mum and Yanni they didn't do a very good job, so Mum and Yanni are building the driveway right now.
So Mom is your mom, and Yanni is, how do we describe Yanni? Your brother who is a surfer, artist, creative. I mean, what do we have to say about him?
Oh, I always am so surprised with Yanni's creativity. Yeah, he's my younger brother by 2 years, and so we've just become very close from day dot, but now he's staying down here with me. He plays pretty much every instrument ever, draws some beautiful creations. He's working so many different trades, learning about sound systems and working lights at concerts, and just getting as much experience as possible. He tried to be my little buddy in South Africa and filmed a whole huge kind of vlog video diary, and just I want to one day be able to bring him along on trips and have him as my support. But it's amazing, he's so different to the way I operate, and it's really refreshing, and I try to see it like a yin and yang instead of oh, he's nothing like me, he doesn't understand. It's like he brings amazing qualities that I can learn from, and a little bit of my hustle to get him going. Nothing wrong. Come on, let's go do this.
So you're more of a...
He's got the idea.
You're like a self-motivated, driven kind of person, and he's more of a creative, lazy kind of a person? Yes. What is that, how we go about saying it?
Yes. He's got a slow process is how Mum and I describe him.
Well, as a fellow slow processor, I can respect that. So that's cool. I think Yanni's got a really cool trick that I enjoy watching on social media. For our audience though, I mean, so your mom has you living out here in this really cool kind of rural part of the northern coast in New South Wales, to the point where internet is usually not even that good. Now you have really good internet. You're so stoked. Do you love it out there? Do you like kind of being off the grid, or do you miss the city?
I pretty much, our whole childhood has been kind of like this. So yeah, we're pretty in a very small town on northern coast of New South Wales, and I've been able to, for the past 2 weeks, pretty much experience living by myself and doing everything that you'd normally do as a 19-year-old leaving home, you know. So it's a really good experience for me. But living simply and living as gently on the planet as possible. I guess in the past, living on the Gold Coast, pace was really fast, and then felt a lot of anxiety and a bit of stress. And literally, like, by coming down here, I've just felt so much more grounded, more centered, and to be able to go outside and plant some fruit trees, just to have a little bit more of a connection to where you are. And I really love it down here, just to be surrounded by trees, and to my neighbors be a bit further away than right next door. The Wi-Fi has been a challenge. We had a thunderstorm the other night, and the reception tower was struck, I found out. So that's why it's so bad.
Okay, so you mentioned that it's good to be surrounded by trees. Trees kind of run in the family and sort of tie into why we're talking today. How did your parents meet, and where were you born?
So my parents met in a coastal town in Ecuador called Bahia de Caracas, and it was actually World Mangrove Day. And so my mom's an environmental activist, and pretty much by the age of 14, she decided she wanted to save the world. And that brought her all around the world, campaigning, protesting, and then working with the Rainforest Information Center, which brought her to mangrove conservation in Ecuador.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where she met my father. And then she kind of discovered the mountains of Ecuador and this biodiversity hotspot in the cloud forest. Just a kind of similar lifestyle to here, you know, like an hour's walk from a neighbor, like deep in the forest. She built a house, an eco house, no electricity. She didn't put any windows in so that the hummingbirds could fly in and around.
That's the most hippie thing that I've ever heard of in my life. It's incredible. Allowing the hummingbird to fly in and out of your house. So what is a cloud forest?
Yes. So the cloud forest in Ecuador, it's the Intag Reserve, and pretty much it's at such a high elevation that there's just clouds everywhere. There's a shower a day. You kind of get the 4 seasons in one day when the sun comes out.
Huh.
But I don't even know how to explain it. It feels like
you're in a cloud?
It's a different kind of air. Yeah. It's just like, and I swear it like boosts your mood. You're around these trees, and you literally, like, I think it is the altitude, because I just came back from Ecuador, and I couldn't even describe it. It was just like, literally breathtaking, because you're at such a high altitude. So you're looking at these huge forests, these like prehistoric, like there's incredible amount of different species of plants, animals, birds, insects in this tiny little reserve. And it's just like, wow, yeah, speechless. And so she kind of fell in love with that place. And when I came along, she had me in one of the towns there called Cotacachi. And the midwife was actually the wife of the first indigenous mayor of that town since colonization. And so to have the indigenous Quechua people present, and so they believe in Pachamama, and Pacha, which means like universe, Pachamama meaning earth. And so that's where I got my name.
Okay, so before we get into the wild irony of your parents having met on World Mangrove Day, when did you move to Australia, and how did surfing come into your life?
So pretty much my grandmother and my mother's family are all from the Gold Coast, and my grandmother coming over when my mum was about 3 years old from Germany, and to have the access to probably the most beautiful beaches in the world. You know, Australian beaches, they are just pristine, always beautiful clear water. It was hard to toss up life in the forest, which was pretty brutal, pretty hard, especially when you had 2 young kids. This was when my mum was pregnant with my brother. And then pretty much we decided to move back to Australia around that time, just to base there, be close to my grandmother. My mum needed that support, and it kind of, it definitely like tied in together this wild life, and then this kind of civilized, okay, this is what every Australian family should do, or like spend days at the beach, like dawn till dusk, going around on boogie boards. My brother actually stood up on a boogie board, and I, being the competitive person I am, was like, I want to do that. I want to do it better than him. I was around.
How old were you when that happened, when you wanted to be better than Yanni?
So I was around 8 or 9, and he was 6 or 7. And I pretty much made it my goal to get a surfboard and to start surfing. And it was just like so much more fun because we were at the beach anyway. And it was amazing. Mum wasn't a surfer. My parents weren't surfers, but they had the philosophy to just have no fear. And so Mum would take us swimming out the back past the waves, and kind of would be in the lineup of the surfers, like bobbing around as like 5-year-olds, like tiny kids, just like so terrified of these waves. And Mum would be like, don't worry, it'll be fine. And so we kind of carried that with us. And to have that courage, I think it really, in my head, made any dream or any goal possible. So when I really wanted a surfboard, and we couldn't afford it, Mum couldn't afford those brand new boards or anything like that, so I decided to raise my own money and busk for a surfboard. And then pretty much one day I was busking at the Roxy Pro on the Gold Coast in like 2011, and Laura came past and gave me one of her backup boards, and the rest is history.
Okay. So this part of your story is really interesting. So I've only hung out or spoke with Laura Eniver once. It was in the airport in Sydney. Could not have been more friendly, more sweet, more nice, more charming. You were actually playing what, ukulele when you were busking?
I was a dancer. I could even show you. This was the house that I really just started dancing every day. Like I just couldn't stop. I would listen to like Cat Empire, Black Eyed Peas, and just like dance even during meal times. Like take a bite of spaghetti and like dance like right here.
In that exact spot that you're sitting in right now.
Exact right spot. There's these big mirror like windows, and at night they reflected a tiny bit, and I was like
okay. So it was sort of like a dance studio. You could see what you were doing while you were dancing. And so you were dancing on the street, busking, and Laura Eniver comes over, gives you a board.
Yes.
And now it's traveling and surf trips and all sorts of fun stuff that ensues.
Oh, it's just surreal. Like not even 10 years ago to tell that little girl that, yep, this is going to be your life. You're going to surf as your career, as your job. And I couldn't even, like, I'm trying to think of it now. And I'm like, she'd be like, who is this crazy lady? Like, you're crazy. Okay.
So
it's amazing.
What is the most recent?
Sorry?
What is the most recent trip that you've done? Is it the Papua region, or did you go somewhere else more recently?
So it pretty much Papua region. The whole trip was the beginning of a bit of a traveling leg. I do compete on the qualifying series, so immediately after the trip I flew into Sydney and drove up to the Central Coast to compete in the 3000 there, and then from there straight to Newcastle for another QS, and then from Newcastle home for 24 hours, and then to Ecuador to shoot a home series with Billabong.
Okay, so let's go to the beginning of that leg of travel. This circles onto the insane irony and just the wild way that life works out sometimes. For our audience, why did you go to the Papua region, and how did it relate to the way that your parents met on World Mangrove Day?
So pretty much I went to Papua with an incredible group, shooting and being able to be involved in the whole process of sea trees. So we went all the way to this tiny little island to start a new mangrove plantation and reforestation. So it was pretty crazy when I met Michael Stewart from Sustain Surf, and is also a big part of Sea Trees on the Gold Coast just a couple of days before our trip at the Global Wave Conference. And it was just amazing when we started to exchange stories and reflecting back and realizing, oh my goodness, my parents have met through World Mangrove Day, through conserving mangrove ecosystems. And, you know, my mum's been working with deep ecology and promoting a bit of more of a connection to the environment through songwriting. And pretty much from day dot, I've been singing this song that my mum's wrote from called the Mangrove Song.
Yeah.
And it's in like 3 different languages, and I didn't really understand it. And then going on this trip, talking with Michael, and it was just like, whoa, like it's all intertwined. It was pretty amazing. Yeah.
So here's the crazy thing. So I did not attend Global Wave Conference this year on the Gold Coast, but I did go to the one that they had in Santa Cruz a couple years ago. And that's the first time that Michael ever told me about sea trees. And when he was talking about going to Biak to do a mangrove tree planting mission, he asked us ways that we'd like to participate in it. And we said, well, do you want to bring Pacha? But we had no idea that's how your parents had met. We didn't know until you were on the trip. And Michael emailed us and said, you guys aren't going to believe this. So we had no idea. But for our audience out there, I mean, what's it like planting mangrove trees? What was the trip like? What did it feel like to be planting mangrove trees? And had you ever personally done that before, or was it just your parents who had done
it? It was such like an eye-opening trip. It felt very personal. Like I just had so many different experiences that made me feel a part of something bigger and a part of the local communities. But I had never personally planted mangroves. I've done a lot of even at school. We used to have a big mangrove system in Currumbin, and we would go, and that was one of the science excursions, was to go into to see all the different types of mangroves. And even there's one type of mangrove where the salt collects on the leaves, and we would all lick the salt off these random leaves. We're a bit forest children.
Yeah,
but there was probably ate a couple bugs too. Good protein. But no, yeah, the trip was just kind of magical. Like everything was that we had approached along the way, getting there and personally meeting the heads of the plantation with Eden projects, and the kind of trek to the boat to then go to the smaller island where the site was going to be. It was like running into these fallen down trees and hopping on these crazy tiny little boats, seeing dolphins all around.
Oh yeah.
Doing these huge like open sea passages and these swell lines, and I'm just like holding on. I'm like, I'm gonna be fine. I will be fine. On these tiny like little boats. And then just seeing the untouched like just beauty of these like tiny little islands in the Papua region. but then to be able to plant these mangroves and these tiny little cute little prongs, these little kind of flowery things attached. I don't know. It was just like, I had to pinch myself so many times. It was so surreal to be there with such an amazing crew and really, really beautiful people working alongside. And it was hot and there's not much shade in the mangrove trees, but we did it and we handled it. And I'm really excited to see the video coming along from this trip. And there's just so many kind of personal experiences and reflections and learnings on that trip that it will definitely stay with me for many years to come. And it was seriously just amazing.
So a lot of our audience out there might know that at Firewire, we use the Sea Trees program to wipe our carbon footprint each year. But as you know, and as everyone knows, we make surfboards. So I have to ask you, what are your favorite boards right now? What shapes are you riding? What designs are you riding? What are your top 2 favorite boards of the moment? What are you surfing on most of the time?
Oh, it's such I kind of just get smiling just thinking about this one board. I've been kind of in love with the Go Fish from Machado's shapes.
Yeah.
And I've been so lucky to get a hold of a woolite Go Fish. It is the most beautiful, literally makes my heart sing. Just a tiny little biscuit little board, and just off the top, down the bottom, just everything goes so fast. I can keep it on rail, and I just love it so much.
Well, you are really lucky because you and Rob have the only woolite Go Fishes on the planet, and everyone else can only get the seaside in woolite. But that is out there; people can check it out. You also seem to surf Gamma a lot. Am I right that you ride?
Yes.
Is that
so
competitions or?
Yeah. So pretty much whenever I'm training or getting ready for an upcoming contest, and all over the world, I've been able to surf the Slater Gamma, and recently I've been loving the LFT versions, and I love the heliums too, especially whenever I try to go for airs and things like that, just way more extra pop. But to have both that high performance and to be able to kind of do that side of the surfing, and as well transfer over into a bit more slow, a bit more kind of intentful. I don't know, just to have that balance is like, I'm all about that balance. And
intentful. That's a good word. I like that. That's a good one. I'm so happy that we got on a call and we were able to catch up like this. Just a couple more things really quick. Like, what's next for you? How's quarantine going? I mean, how's it going? How are your family doing with it? And what are you looking forward to doing when we don't have to be isolated like this anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I've been really enjoying kind of this a bit more reflective state and calmness, and looking more into who I want to be and my experiences. And because of this kind of rapid time schedule I've had for the past three years, I've never been able to properly process each experience. And I think that this time to be calm, to be still, has been really eye-opening and made me so much more grateful to every trip or every experience, every surf I've had. I haven't been able to surf while I've been here very much, but I'm stoked to be out of the travel quarantine, self-quarantine time, and I can go at least to the ocean. But I think it's a strange time to see the way that people are processing it, and the way that the fear and this kind of ultra, I don't know, it's everybody's getting very, very terrified. And for sure, like I've got my grandma on the Gold Coast, and I can't see her at all, just in case, I don't want to put her at risk, and it's really frightening to think about. But just the way that it's becoming a bit polarizing. I don't know. I read a really amazing article by Charles Eisenstein, and the way that he describes this whole situation as a sort of crossroad. Mm-hmm. It's the crossroad that we've been kind of waiting for, where, you know, we're not traveling as much and we're becoming a little bit more self-sufficient, and I've seen amazing things that united communities instead of separating, and it's really difficult to know what are the right things to do, apart from obviously the rules of self-distancing and obviously, you know, using common sense and not going outside and seeing people if you're sick and things like that. But for me to get back into the soil and to grow my own food and to realize that, you know, my neighbors have chickens, like my other neighbor has honey. It's about living as local as possible. And I think that there's certain things that we can take into the other side that are going to be really amazing for our society. And it's made us grateful for human contact and giving people hugs. Like, we're social animals, you know, like, to remember that this social distancing, it's providing this contrast that we're like, okay, let's show a bit more love, like when we're out, and be a bit more kinder to the earth. Like, look, to see like even the Venice canals being clear after 1 week of like stopping that traffic. It's like, whoa, like our earth is so plentiful. We just got to give it a little bit of love, and she'll take care of us. So
just a little bit.
There's certain things.
A little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's really, really hopeful. So I'm really excited for this resurface.
Will you please text me the link to that article by Charles Eisenstein so I can put it in the show notes? And then you mentioned
I was sorry.
You mentioned this is a good time to like recenter and ground yourself. What do you do to ground yourself? Do you have a meditative practice, yoga, long walks in the forest? I mean, what works for you to ground yourself after the hectic schedule that you keep?
I think personally, I've been in that high adrenal state for so long and have had that high energy, kind of a little bit on the hyper side, and to step back, you know, do music. And music's been really helping me, especially with my brother. He's really talented, so to jam with him and to tend to the garden, to do different breathing exercises, to just read a book. Like, I've been so grateful for time to just read a book. It's been pretty hectic, but to have this time to be still, just even preparing food, to slowly and mindfully appreciate where everything's been coming from and all the nutrients that you're getting from a little stir fry. It's been amazing to just be a bit more, to just have a little bit more appreciation. I don't know, it makes everything a bit more magical, I think.
Well, I hope that everything continues to get more magical for you in the coming weeks. I want to ask you one last question to close this off. You can whip out your cell phone, your iPhone, or your Android, whatever you have, and you can send a text message from your phone that reaches the phone of every single person on the planet tonight. What text message would you send that gets to the phone of every single person on the planet? And if your mom was to steal your phone and she was going to send the text message, what would she say? And same thing with Yanni. What would you say?
Okay. I feel like both me and my mums would be borderline similar, but for me personally, I feel like that if everybody could sort of wake up to the world around them, to nature, to Mother Earth, to understand that there's no separation between us and this planet, to know that we are a part of her, and that in order for her to take care of us, we have to take care of her. And to set, if I could send that text message to these CEOs of these mega companies running all these crazy stuff and the politicians and stuff like that, to understand this loving connection with our overall mother. I feel like that could change a lot of decisions made that are really hurting our environment and our climate, and furthermore hurting us. And it's hurting those third world countries, a bit more poverty stricken and smaller villages, and that's going to reach those top 1% last. And it's really hard to see that that disconnection. So I feel like get your hands in the soil and feel these different energies that are all around us, you know, going to the ocean and feeling a wave, you know. I think that's pretty amazing for a wave to break, traveling all those miles from the ocean. So to have that deeper connection, I think that would be my biggest text message, I guess. And then I feel like my brother I don't really know what's going on in his head, but I feel like it's pretty similar. It's like I've always said it, and I feel like my brother agrees, like to take all these politicians surfing and like to understand, like, okay, look at how incredible, like, look at this incredible thing that you're doing. Like, you cannot describe it to anybody who's never done it before. Like, I think that's pretty insane. Like, I don't know, to have a deeper appreciation, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would hope it would change some things, but
you know what? I think that's a pretty cool message to send out, and I think it would change some people's minds. I unfortunately just don't have the actual ability to make that show up on everyone's phone. Maybe I'll figure it out.
Oh, damn.
Well, look, Pacha, thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for having a chat. And let's do it again sometime.
Yes, 100%. Sending so much love to you and the family, and stay well during this time. Grow a little potato in the garden.
Okay, I'm on it.
Get some waves, hopefully.
Let's grow some potatoes in the garden.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Thanks, Pacha.